What did you like, Kingy? What were some of the best bits from last night?
The number one takeaway from me last night, and well, I've got two players I want to talk about, but the number one takeaway for me is that the return of the red mist in Dustin Martin. The competitor was back last night. He hasn't had a big night by any stretch. He hasn't separated the game and had a 5-goal performance or anything like that. He's 23 touches, 8 inside 50s and a goal, but he was involved in everything that was positive in the forward half for Richmond. Jack was having a terrific battle with Lewis Young, and Young was on top for probably the first 2.5 quarters, and Jack fought back. That was good to watch. Lynch the same, had his hands full with Wiedering. It was just a good, solid head-to-head. But Dustin, I thought, we haven't seen him at his absolute best for 18 months, and he's missed a lot of footy, and he's had his own challenges with, lots of things going on. Not here to talk about them, but I was thrilled to see that competitor back last night.
It's no one is better. I don't know what the numbers say, but the one-on-one contests, the ability just to nudge someone off the ball at ground level and get yourself into the position to win it. Their forward line, if you want to talk about best bits, and if you're looking for a glass half full approach for Richmond, they're going to cause teams a lot of headaches. Maurice Rioli, Tom Lynch, when he becomes fully conditioned into the season, we saw what he did in the back half. Shea Bolton's going to kick 8 goals one day. Like, it's just all going to click, and he's going to kick 8, and then you got Dustin Martin, and Revolt will do what Revolt has done. So, I mean, that is a potent forward line. Now, Damien Hardwick said after the game they lacked polish, and it was probably spot on. Well, that's probably the difference, really. Like,
Jack Graham's first half was... He had so many opportunities.
And he is one of the best finishers in the game, Jack. Of course, his preparation. Yeah, I think on the run,
right.
I reckon he's on the run, from 50, top 5 or 6 in the game who I would back in. And he missed 2. There was a number of misses that they had. We've spoken about the Shea Bolton one that he missed. So in the end, Damien Hardwick says we had a Richmond game, 37 forward half intercepts, which is off the charts. I think 16 in the first quarter, which was never even done in a game last year. But the difference in it was they couldn't finish. So, I mean, there's optimism to take out of it from Richmond. What about from the Blues?
What was your big takeaway from the night?
Well, what you said. So the forward line of Richmond, if I'm looking optimistically, is going to cause absolute headaches and heartaches for a lot of opposition. They're going to win a lot of games.
To add to that, right? So I just went back and had a look last night because plenty of time last night, Cornes, as you can imagine. So they've had 66 inside 50s, Richmond. If you look across the last 10 years, right, there's been almost 50 occasions where they've had 60 plus. 8 goals, 10 last night was their lowest total they've ever kicked for the last decade, having 60 or more inside 50s.
So how much do we pat Carlton on the back for that?
Oh, that's the wrestle, isn't it? Where does it sit? Is it lost opportunities for the title? Is it Carlton forcing Richmond into a different brand of footy to play left-handed, to steal a Bill Belichick term? The coast-to-coast stuff's hard to stop with Richmond. But when you get those in and out repeat entries, I know it's a territory game, and Damien can say we've had 37 forward half intercepts, but they're not intercepts to score. They're intercepts to dominate territory, and they're not as threatening as Richmond are best when the ball's zinging down the ground. So I think all credit to Carlton's back 6. The other thing I wanted to mention was Daniel Rioli. I think he's now one of the elite counter-punching half-back flankers in the corner.
No doubt.
All-Australian squad last year.
Yeah.
And he was just terrific to watch.
From a Carlton perspective, what did I like? Well, Tom de Koning, I'm not sure he's ever rucked for 95% of the game on his own. Of course, he's done it in little bits, but 30-odd games, he just looks a player to me. So to go head-to-head with an absolute animal in Nankervis and to split the points, I reckon. I thought in front of 88,000, round 1 at the MCG in an unfamiliar role for all of it. I thought he ran out the game really well. He looks big. He looks strong. Thought his tap work is good. He had the one moment where Lynch was able to nudge him under the ball in the forward 50 and kick the goal that was then reversed after it was touched. But they got to get his signature, King. Yeah. They have to get that signature.
I'm going to debate you on this one. I watched the game. This is why we have multiple special comments people, right? I don't see it.
With him?
I don't see that he's $1 million player. I just don't see it. I'm happy to be proven wrong on this. If he is that player, if he is the bona fide big money ruckman, A 1 out versus Nankervis last night. He could have been the difference. He should have been the difference. He had opportunity. He's finished the day with 13 touches. Not really the reason they scored. 3 of those touches in the forward half of the ground. If you're paying $1 million a year,
and I'm not saying when I say these, people lose their mind. I'm not saying he's worth $1 million. I'm saying a team will pay him $1 million.
Well, that would be complete madness.
Well, they're paying Luke Jackson something in the vicinity of that.
His possessions become scores.
Do they?
Yes.
He doesn't get many.
No, but they become scores. That's my point. This guy, I'm not sold. I'm happy to debate you on this one. We'll revisit it in 6 weeks.
I'm sold. I'm absolutely sold.
Cap. You don't like spending this sort of money in the salary cap.
No, I don't. And once again, don't get confused. I'm saying there will be, and it won't be Carlton. There will be a rival club out there, and we've already seen it. We saw Ross Lyon smirk on Footy Classified on Wednesday night when Damien Barrett said Stephen Silvani's interested in him. We've already heard reports of an 8-year offer from Sydney. What, you think they're paying him $400,000? They're not. I'm saying a team will pay him in the vicinity of $1 million. I'm not saying he's worth it. So
if he's going to get paid $800 plus, you want to get more than 3 disposals in the forward half of the ground. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, all right.
A lot of big men can go behind the ball and catch it. Aaron Sandilands did it for 20 years, but send him forward of the play. He couldn't catch it in the forward 50. This guy's better than that, I know, but need to see it.
Moderate the debate for us. 0433 98 11 16 is the temper text if you want to get involved. And just quickly, I thought Patrick Cripps' last quarter, by the numbers, his efficiency disposal-wise wasn't great, but I thought it was Joel Selwood-esque that there is a game to be won. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to get 5 clearances in the last quarter and have 10 possessions and put my head over the ball and win critical contests. I thought he was.
We've got to get to some calls and give people their opportunity to have a chat. We've got plenty to go through. We've got plenty of time to do it this morning, so we'll step through. Just one quick one from me. The debutants were terrific for Carlton. Gee, they looked at home, didn't they? I know that they ran in some big frames, but Hollands, he finished with 11 disposals and Cowan 7 disposals, but 6 of those he won himself. It's the hardest thing to do in footy is come in as a young player and actually win contested ball against grown men. I thought they were outstanding. The 4 umpire system's a good talking point, right? So with a minute to go, Taranto jogs to full forward and basically blocks Jacob Wiedering. Now, I know you do this on close checking. This would never slip through close checking. Is the 4th umpire there just to legislate a hold against a defender or a check and not give a forward a run at the ball? Or is he there to say, no, hang on, whoa, you can't block the fullback out of the contest and allow Lynch a clean run to take that contested mark?
They're there for both.
Well, why don't they pay it?
Well, I don't know. And there was one, the Kerno was molested a couple of times in the marking contest last night, and that was allowed to play on. So, look, my preference is, if in doubt, don't blow the whistle. If you're not 100%, I'd rather less free kicks than more. Other people disagree.
What about the fend? What's happened to the fend? Let's defend the fend.
What do you mean? Explain.
Well, the fend, Dusty got done a few times. It wasn't really dropping the ball. Okay, I know it's your prior opportunity.
Prior, though.
Yeah, I get that, but there was about I reckon 6 free kicks against the fend, and I reckon 2 or 3 were a bit sort of 50-50.
There will be times on a Friday morning where I'm ready to launch on the umpires. This morning isn't one of those. I thought they umpired very well. Holistically last night, I thought they were terrific. What about the worst bits, Kingy? Yeah. For me, just quickly, it was Carlton being Carlton, and you touched on it earlier, but I remember standing up at the Plasma on the Sunday Footy Show going twice last year, you don't lose games like this against Melbourne and Collingwood. I'll do exactly the same on Sunday. I mean, the amount of little brain fades, little mistakes that they made, players slipping over, fumbling. We've spoken about Sard. Akers drops that mark with 10 seconds to go in the game, uncontested on the outside of 50. Like, they just, for whatever reason, they're not yet able to absorb the pressure in big moments of games and know exactly what to do when they need to do it.
Can't play them. If the same players are the reason you're in this...
Well, I'm talking McGovern, I'm talking Akers. Like, there's a couple of big, important players for them.
Yeah, and don't worry.
Made repeated mistakes.
Don't worry. Noah Bolter is very lucky. Yeah. He didn't even run with McKay in that last moment where he's fighting 3 players. None of them were his opponent. So he's very lucky. And I'll tell you who else is very lucky. Liam Baker, who charges in off that last centre bounce off the back of the square and leaves Blake Akers all alone at the top of 50. Should have cost him the game. But I did the last 10 years, we talked about the close margin losses. Carlton are the third worst performed team in games decided by under 12 points or 12 points or less. They win 4 out of every 10. Only Adelaide and the Gold Coast Suns are poorer than that. So this is a habit that is costing them finals appearances.
Kingy is like a cat on a hot tin roof. You mentioned the big game at the Adelaide Oval tomorrow, twilight. Brisbane coming to town to take on Port Adelaide. What's your thoughts on the ramifications of this game?
Oh, this is the most significant home and away game in Adelaide for years. Ken Hinckley's got it all on the line. Home
Round
game.
one.
Absolutely. You look at their first 5 weeks, they play like types. 4 of the 5 games are against contenders. And Port Adelaide, after a decade at the helm for Ken Hinckley, have to be a contender this year. Everyone expects, and I think the club demands their minimum top 4. And if that's to be the case, you have to beat fellow top 8/top 4 teams to get there. On the road, Brisbane, it's a must. Next week, they come to the MCG for... So if they lose this one, they come to the MCG for Collingwood next week. They won't be favourites to win that. Then there's the showdown, always 50-50 games. Then they go to Sydney to play the Sydney Swans. They've got to travel up there and try and get the 4 points out of Sydney. Hard to do. And then the Western Bulldogs come over and gather round. It's an awful 5 weeks. This is an absolute must this week. He's already fighting against the odds, so he has to start 1-0.
So what are you saying the ramifications would be of a nasty loss?
Well, you just lose faith. The group lose faith. And once you lose that absolute 100% trust from all facets of your football club that you're still the man, it's untenable. That's the reality. Now, it doesn't happen after one round, but if you put those block of 5 games together...
You expect them to win, though? Like, Brisbane are a very good football team. Like, I get it if Essendon were coming to town and you're saying this, but they're up against a good side. I mean,
right, so they don't beat the good sides.
No, well they do, and of course, but the ramifications of a loss to a side as good as Brisbane, depending on the way that the game plays out.
I'm looking at the block of 5, though. I'm looking at the block of 5 weeks. And if you can't win at home against like types, when will you win against like types at home?
If you want to put something on the agenda, 1300 736 736. On a similar but different note for me, it's West Coast. I cannot believe that North Melbourne are starting this game favourites. So the ramifications for West Coast on the back of a 2-win season last year to play North Melbourne with the situation, with the rebuild that they are in, missing some key players in Mackay and Zerha. If West Coast don't turn up with Hearn, with Barras, with Duggan, with McGovern, with Gaff, with Kelly, with Sheed, with Darling, with Cripps, with Oscar Allen, with Liam Ryan, with Luke Shuey, and win this game of football, I think they have the most at stake in round 1. How could they not start favourite, West Coast?
Well, they're missing Nick Natanui and Elliot Yeo. They're still missing a few high caliber players, and it's hard. It's difficult to travel and win. That is a given. We know the numbers on that, and this is a big game for the Kangaroos. The Kangaroos have probably got, I think, 3 or 4 games circled at the start of the season that are winnable games, and this is one of them. I mean, to make the statement to the group, hey, Todd Goldstein is not starting the year in the senior lineup, having played 295 games for the football club and being a warrior over the last few years, a one-man show in that midfield as a ruckman, as a genuine contested beast. I think it's the statement this club needs. Okay, no one's safe. Reputations mean nothing. This is it. Line in the sand stuff from Alistair Clarkson. He didn't play Will Phillips, or he's an emergency.
So I want to ask you about that, and I want to ask the North Melbourne fans about that. So Will Phillips is not playing. Liam Shields and Hugh Greenwood are playing. What would you rather say? I mean, now Phillips might be the sub, so I get that.
I hate that. Just name him as sub, please.
To your point, but as a North Melbourne fan with the situation they're in, would you rather a pick 3 in his 3rd year play over Liam Shields, who's been recycled from Hawthorn? I know what I'd rather.
Well, you got to. Well, Riley,
I know you don't give. Yeah, I think Adelaide in their 4th year of a rebuild are in a bit of a different situation, and I know you don't give. Well, they're 4 years versus 1, and I just think that's they're actually trying to make finals. I think North Melbourne is much more about developing these players. I kept hearing about how good the pre-season was from Will and how fit he was.
He'll be probably
and then
sub.
I see Hugh Greenwood get a game over him. I'm just asking you the question. If you're a North Melbourne fan, what would you rather see?
Well, I think you've got to have selection integrity. If these guys have performed through the pre-season period, they get selected. So on the back of that, there's no point bringing Liam Shields to your football club and not playing him. I mean, he's out there for leadership.
At the expense of a pick 3 in his third year,
maybe
who everyone told me he's had a big pre-season.
Yeah, but he's missed 18 months of footy with glandular fever and the like. So I've got no doubt he'll be sub. Dawson, Goldstein and Young are the others listed as emergencies. I think Phillips will be the sub. The AFL got to look at this. The teams don't read right. You're going to make statements on individual players.
You should start a petition.
To know.
We should start a petition.
Well, you're good with petitions. This is your thing.
That's what I'm
you got
saying.
Form. You had eight people sign that thing last year, and you got to have
Let's do this. Fireball Friday.
Yeah.
If we can't get rid of the sub altogether, we'll start a petition.
We don't want to get rid of the sub.
No, I do. I hate the sub.
You keep that petition off.
Yeah,
the
that's
books.
what I said. So that's separate. We will start a petition that when you name your team on a Thursday, you have to include the sub. Chris, you want to go back to last night?
Before you go to Chris, how long before? If we can call this an outrageous success, how many weeks before the AFL make the shift?
Within a month. Okay. But you probably can't do it without a footy boss, which they're still searching for after months. So that makes
Gil can do
it.
Gil make one phone call.
I'm a market mover.
Is that you?
I don't know. It was, but I don't know when I said that.
Serious. Now, what's happening at Essendon? What's going on? I just want to play a little bit of audio that Tim Watson spoke about earlier in the week.
You got the head of football and the head of list management. Surely they've got to be in a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah. But maybe they've worked out some way of dealing with the. No, I don't know. I'm just saying to you, if you've got a problem there, then you've got to fix it.
So,
and it may
Josh
mean
Marnie,
that one of them has to go.
This is a great discussion, isn't it? I mean, it's hard enough in the AFL competition to compete against 17 teams, let alone competing with your own.
Yourself.
You can't be against all 18. You can't if you don't have a settled and stable back office. Yeah. You cannot have success.
What is it with it? Like, I just hear from afar about the factions, Essendon, and all of that. Well, what is with the politics at that club? Like, why do so many people want to get involved in certain things? Just let football run football. I mean, this seems to be big egos, and Craig Vosso's come in and changed the way that everyone's reporting to each other and doing it different to other clubs. And I read all this and going, they're still a mess for whatever reason, the Bombers. All right.
Didn't they do a review to get through all this stuff? Like, what happened to that? What happened to the findings of the review if we're just going to shift who reports to who?
They're there. The findings of the review are there, and they don't make for great reading.